It's an absolute pleasure today to have Adam on the podcast. He's actually fairly local to me, so thank you very much, sir.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, Adam, let's give us a brief intro, bio of your background, who you are, what you do, where you're from.
Yep. So from Crawley, which, as you say, isn't too far from you. So it's 5 minutes from Gatwick Airport. Background would be, good question. When I was younger, I did rugby, boxing, football, was super active all the time. Ended up with Osgood-Schlatter's disease and then something called Blount's disease. So I had to have both my legs broken. Was in a wheelchair for 8 weeks, non-weight bearing, pinned and plated. Not ideal. At the end of it, had super skinny legs, no muscle mass. I couldn't run, couldn't change direction like I could with all the other sort of contact sports that I was doing, and decided to just join a gym and rehab myself. Joined my local Virgin, added some muscle tissue, and had a few people comment that rolled it, that thought I'd trained for a lot longer. End up helping sort of people that I was at school with. And then from there, I thought, right, I'll make this kind of my passion, my job. I enjoy training people. So that's what got me in the industry, which was, falling into.
How old were you then out of interest?
15. So it sucked. I was relatively good at rugby. It was just super active, always playing sports. And then to suddenly get told that you have to stop, it was a ball ache. But blessing in disguise, because then it kind of led me down this route. And I was a PT for about 11, 12 years on the gym floor, worked in London, worked with loads of clients, but I've always been purely body composition based. So I've never done the whole, sport specific injury rehab. It's always been, you want to add muscle tissue or you want to get leaner, I'll help you with that.
Similar to myself, like a transformation specialist, essentially.
Exactly that. Yep. Just nail one thing. I think it's a big mistake when you see, and this is a little tip for your listeners, that, if you're in the gym looking at hiring a PT and you look at the profile boards, if it says something like I specialize in and 6-7 different subjects, they don't specialize in anything.
Jack of all trades.
You got it, right? Yeah. I use this analogy that if you had to have brain surgery, would you let your GP do it? Fuck no. So I work with clients purely body composition based for 10, 11 years. And then I was doing online coaching on the side of it for about 5-6 years, and just thinking it was a way of helping people that couldn't see me face to face. I never really thought of it as kind of a business. And then I got that typical burnout that most PTs, if they're listening to this, will probably, empathize with. And about 2.5-3 years ago, decided to take the plunge to go all in with online coaching. Set up a business called R&T Fitness. It grew phenomenally. And then I now kind of have like a 50-50 where I still work with clients that want to get in shape. And then I also help PTs on the gym floor come off of the gym floor, or at least get them out of that, the rat race of the...
How of interest did your initial online clients come to you?
My initial ones were, back in the day, I was on bodybuilding forums.
Okay.
I was a little like...
Old school.
Which old one? School. UK Muscle, Muscular Development. This is back when like Lane Norton...
as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. Muscle Talk, James Collier that run that, yep. So I was a real nerd back then, just wanted to learn anything nutrition. So I was just on these forums and would sort of give advice. And gradually I'd have people sort of, message me through there. And of course, these were all up and down the country. So that's how I started online coaching. And I remember it was that crude that I'd literally sit there in bed with like pen, paper, and a calculator, and literally like handwrite, all their macros, their formulas. And then I type it into an email. And now, of course, you've got apps, you've got video sharing and all this. It's crazy, the difference. But back when I was doing it, Instagram didn't exist. And online coaching wasn't a thing. This was just a way of me being able to still have some contact with somebody. So it's quite funny, actually. What's it, sorry?
Forum coaching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was, and that was kind of the trigger, and it was just a little side thing that would, I'd charge maybe, I don't know, like 50 quid a month or something. It was, it wasn't a lot of money, but it was more enjoyment. And then, I just hit that point where it was like, you know what, the world's a big place. And all the time I'm stuck on the gym floor, I can really travel like once a year. anytime I take time off to go on holiday, I'm not getting paid. I've got the cost of the holiday plus pissing my clients off plus losing money.
Doubles everything up, yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted a solution out of that. And I remember saying to somebody maybe 4 or 5 years ago, if I could work from my laptop one day, like that would be the dream, I love helping people online. And then fast forward 5 years, I'm doing it. So yeah, that's it really. So kind of fell into the industry with the operation, which was less than ideal. And then competed in bodybuilding and stuff. And that's what got me down into the body composition route, I guess, is I'd come from, competitive sports, but team sports. And then when I started training, I still needed a focus and a goal. I'm not very good without, being driven without goals. I always need that what's next sort of thing. And somebody just said to me, right, well, you can't run anymore, but you can lift weights. So it's funny, after my leg operation, I could squat, deadlift, lunge, all that sort of stuff. It's just running that's more like Forrest Gump. So that led me into competing, and then PT, online PT, and now helping online PTs become better online PTs.
Here's a question for you. When you first started PTing, what's the one thing you wish you knew, which you know now? There's one tip you can give to yourself, a young Adam.
Yeah, I think if I was to go back, young Adam, it would be stop searching for some magic macro formula. I remember I was obsessed looking at all the top people in the industry. At the time it was Phil Graham, it was Nick Mitchell, it was Paula Quinn, it was Lane Norton, all these guys when I was coming up. And it was looking at the results, that they put out, and then wondering, what secret formula. Is it 8 calories per pound? I'm genuinely like, I would search all over the internet trying to find this. And the truth is the client just needs to be in a deficit. And it's the mental side of things. If you can get a client buy-in. So I wish that I'd understood client adherence and psychology when I first got into it, instead of looking, if I was to translate it to people now, it would be stop wasting time trying to work out the perfect macro formula. Stop worrying about whether you need to program a deload in at week 8 or week 10. And if you're an online coach, stop worrying about which app you're going to use. Like, it really, just pick one of those. And it's the thing that separates the trainers that get results or not are the ones that have the clients that have bought into them and can keep them adherent over the long term.
And that's sort of what we were talking to, sort of briefly discussing before we jumped on the call, is that like having buy-in with the process of whatever you're doing is the key to success. Because ultimately, if you don't believe 100% in something, then the chance that's not going to happen and you're not going to stick to it. So like, that's the most important thing for me.
100%. I sent an email out yesterday talking about like the power of subconscious. And I sort of came at it from a business point of view that, you've probably got experience this maybe, that if you've been on masterminds and stuff like that, you'll learn stuff in the mastermind that you can apply and will help your business over the weeks and months. But there's almost always like a short-term spike in growth afterwards. And it's this subconscious effect, I think, of just being in a room around people. And I likened it to back when I was on the gym floor, that the trainers getting the best results were the ones that took their own training seriously. And it's just because subconsciously their clients then want to level up.
Yeah.
So again, if for the PTs listening to this, if you're wanting your clients to get better results, again, rather than fretting over the perfect macro split, just check yourself. How seriously are you taking your own training? Are you in aspirational shape? And that doesn't mean shredded, doesn't mean you have to be the most jacked dude in the gym, but are you, taking your own nutrition seriously? Are you training seriously? Can they see that? As soon as you start doing that, just they buy into you so much more. And it's all on it's a weird subconscious level. It's happened time and time again with trainers that I've helped, where as soon as they pick a photo shoot to do themselves, or they say, right, I'm going to truly get lean, I've let myself go, suddenly they start getting results with their clients a lot better.
Yeah, that's something I'm a massive believer in, is like leading by example, and you should practice what you preach. Like for me personally, that's something I try and do, is like document the journey of what I'm doing to try and improve my physique, to then help educate and inspire my clients along the way. So I think it's the same yourself. When you're truly passionate about something, it shouldn't be something you would do from a business point of view. It should be something you do anyway because you love doing it and you want to help people.
Yeah, you do that, and then just by default, you lead them from the front.
Yeah.
You follow your passion, and then people will just follow, and then and that in turn, without you doing it directly for your business, indirectly it has a positive impact. And just your clients around you, they just want to impress you and succeed. Yeah, definitely.
And it did make me chuckle a little bit. One of my clients sent a photo of a PT in his gym eating at McDonald's at 6:30 in the morning, like a Big Mac, like sitting on a treadmill. And I was like, I can't remember what I responded to him, but I was like, not really a great way to lead by example. Like, not there's an issue, like if you want to eat that's like fine, but like maybe not sitting on a treadmill at 6:30 in the morning. And do you know what I mean? It's just,
there's a time and a place, right? Like it's known. I love cheesecake.
Mate, I was exactly what I was about to say. The only reason I go to America is Cheesecake Factory and Dubai.
Yeah, so I'm out in Dubai, fly out Saturday, do an overnight flight. And I've already said, like, first thing I do every time I land, Sunday, I will be in Cheesecake Factory, in Dubai Mall, the one opposite the aquarium.
I love that, mate.
Yeah, so it's important to, be real.
Small things in life, yeah, and be like...
Yeah. But doing that, as you say, 6:30... in the in front of people, it's just like, it's just not setting that tone that you should want your clients to follow. They should be serious 80-90% of the time, and then live life 10% of the time outside of competitions, photo shoots and stuff. They're just trying to look better, and again, I think it motivates them if they can see that you yourself, in insane shape year round, you eat the chicken, rice, the broccoli, all that boring shit, it's part and parcel of it, but then you're able to let your hair down, have a drink, have a cheesecake, have a Five Guys. Yeah, it's normal. Whereas,
that's inspiring as well, like, because people want to see that you can have the look that you want, but then also have a life as well, because a lot of people think that you have to be like some Spartan living out of Tupperware 365 days a year. And that's the first thing I say to everyone, is like, all my clients, like, the big thing that is almost like a rule is you have to have one meal a week with, like, with your family, with whatever you want, because psychologically that's such a good mental break and gives you a better relationship with food, in my opinion, than trying to be fully militant. And then when you do go off the rails, it's going to be like a train crash otherwise.
Yep. I think that's important. And one thing that I try and instill in my clients is that it should be a social meal. Because a lot of the time I'd had it previously where I'd say to a client, right, go and enjoy a meal off plan, like, just chill, relax. And I'd hear about it and they'd order like a large Domino's and sit and eat in bed by themselves. You're like, that's not really what, I want you to go and break bread with others and, make it about the experience versus how much food can I get down my throat.
And that comes back to relationship with food again, because then it comes back to the whole cheat meal thing, which is like, again, I'm big into like language. I don't like using that. So I'd always use the word like free meals. You can have what you want. And a cheat in something that mentally is a bad language to use, if that makes sense.
Yep, exactly the same. I do the same thing. I use the term free meal, and it's just the whole point of it is to just, it's not to go and eat shit. It's to just take a period. Sorry, can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, go wild.
I should have checked that before. It's more the social aspect that you can just relax off of your perceived diet for a few hours. And I would always prefer that myself back when I was prepping, rather than having like structured refeeds, where you hit 400 grams or 500 grams. Myself, I would just like a couple of hours where I got dressed up. I went out for a meal, or I just could eat a homemade roast, with my parents or something like that.
The first thing I was thinking is just like, if I could do anything, like competing or anything like that, and I just want just to switch off, would be like go out with family for like a Sunday roast and not have to care and just eat what I wanted.
It's exactly that.
But just eat, like, if I want to have a Yorkshire pudding, you can have a Yorkshire pudding. Like, it's not going to destroy the world.
Yeah. I think it's really healthy to do that. And I explain to my clients when they're doing it, say throughout the week, you and your partner, say you've been working hard, you've been busting ass, and it comes to being able to just relax a little bit over the weekend. If the both of you are genuinely craving a Domino's or something, have it. That's cool, because it's between the two of you and it's the experience. If you want to sit on the sofa, Netflix on, have that, that's great. But at the same time, if you just want to have a homemade curry or a roast with your family, like the point of it is that it's just a period of a few hours where you just socialize, you just forget about food and macros and all that stuff, and you just relax. And if you end up just having a main, great. If you have a starter, main, and dessert because everybody else has it, awesome. Like, it's just the experience. And I think that's it comes back to that relationship with food, you know, rather than making it about the food and looking at it as, oh, this is my one shot of this week to force as much shit down my throat as possible. It should just be, right, what memories can I go and create? And there's no better way to do that than over food, in my opinion.
And I agree with that. I think I can tell from the way you worded that, you've done the same thing I have, where in the past, where you've had that opportunity every week that you do go and eat as much until you actually feel sick. And then you're like, shit. And then you've just overdone it so badly and enjoyed it that you've just undone the whole week's progress.
Yeah. And I think we've all been guilty of it. Anyone that's, you know, got, let's say, shredded for the first time, whether you've competed or a photo shoot, whatever it is, if you've done an extended diet for a long period of time, and if perhaps you didn't have maybe the best guidance the first time around, I think we've all made that mistake of just going hell for leather with the food, and then you have loads of gastric upset afterwards. And I mean, I remember after my first show, my coach at the time, this is now 10 years ago, my coach at the time had told me, you know, your body's like a sponge. You've probably heard all this. Your body's like a sponge to nutrients. You just got to shovel food in. So I did what he said. I piled food in, and, you know, hormones like leptin and ghrelin and stuff, they're screwed after a show. I end up in 6 days, I put on 36 pounds. Jeez. And I'm 5'6", right? So that's
a lot of weight at 5'6".
Yeah, it's a lot of weight. Blood pressure went to 220 over 115,
Jeez,
which is very dangerous.
That's like literally, I've never even heard of anyone with blood pressure that high.
Yeah, it was really bad. I had to have ultrasound on my stomach, you know, like the gel and the little thing like a pregnant woman has, referral to gastroenterologist. And it's all because I just, you know, this coach just said to me, right, you got to hammer food, you know, you're going to grow. It's like, now I know that's fucking retarded. Like, you know, it's just water, fat. You know, you can obviously gain tissue in that post-show if you approach it correctly, but just inhaling everything. So that's why now I'm so passionate about the relationship with food, is because I fell down that trap the first time. And then I think each diet you do, it gets easier and easier. After my last show, I was meant to go out with friends after the show. And I got off stage, I was like, mate, it's 9:30 at night. Like, I'm knackered. It's been a long day. I've been up since 5 this morning. I'm actually happy just to go home. And I literally drove home after the show, had a couple of protein bars, and I just went out for pancakes in the morning for breakfast. I didn't even eat anything that night. So yeah, I think you can empathize, right?
100%. Like last time I competed, that night, after the show, I ended up eating so much Turkish food that I was like lying on my bathroom floor with my stomach like a turtle, with like abs popping out, like feeling my stomach was going to explode, and ended up being sick. And then I've never felt so ill in my life. And I had a photo shoot next morning at 9 o'clock. It wasn't ideal. And I carved up pretty heavily for it. And it's one of those things, not that I ever recommend you do that, but I find with some things in life, if you push yourself to the very extreme, and once you've pretty much been there, you know you never want to go there again. So like now when I start to feel a bit full, like it's getting a bit uncomfortable, like that's it, I'm not enough, done. Like,
yeah, it's a steep learning curve. You know, you can, I explain it to any client that I do help compete. And I want to make it like, I don't really prep people for shows. I do maybe 3 or 4 people a year. For the most part, it's a pain in the ass prepping people for shows.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's a pain. So I always explain to them, if it's your first show, you know, this is what's going to happen. I send them articles that I've written on it. I'm like, this is what happened to me. So just, no matter how much you explain it, when you've had that physiological adaptation of, you know, the hunger hormones and everything, almost always I'll get that message going, mate, I feel like death. You know, exactly like you've done. They're like, I'm on the bathroom floor, like, you know, my stomach's cramping, I look pregnant. I'm like, yep, you didn't listen. But it's a good thing because you've learned it, you've experienced it. You're probably not going to do it again.
And again, I think something you briefly touched on earlier, I think one of the hidden areas coaches don't look at enough with clients, and the biggest thing that overrules everything is human psychology and the psychology of the individual. Do you have any specific tactics or like ways you try and find out a little bit more about people when they first start working with you? So obviously it's a process as from coach to client in terms of you generally get a feel for people after a while.
Yeah, I think it's always a red flag if within the first week or 2 of working with somebody, their first question to me is, when do I get my first cheat meal?
Yeah, that's a lot.
That says a lot. that says a lot. It's, that's somebody that's after short-term gratification for sure. Other than that, it's hard because I've been doing it quite a while now and working with clients for probably about 13 years now. It's almost intuitive. I'd ask leading questions and I kind of get their responses. I try and occasionally with my longer term, more advanced clients, I'll try and get them on a little call every so often, just sort of suss them out. And then I try and adapt to their style. So if I've got busy corporate type clients, I'll reply in their style that's typically quite short, sharp, punchy, get to the point. Clients that are more humorous and write me essay type things, I'll respond in that nature. So I try and mirror my clients basically and build empathy, talk about life type stuff. I try and bring that in there. And then throughout the course of the coaching relationship, my big thing is I'm always trying to work out what their real why is. When you send them their application form and their goal is to lose body fat, that's usually the tip of the iceberg. It's deeper than that. Usually it's a guy that hasn't seen his dick in 3 years, or, it's a girl that got dumped for a younger model. And so I try and subtly get to the real reason as to what's driving them. And then that helps me in terms of knowing how hard I can push a client, what their triggers are, if I need to back off a little bit and have that quiet word in the ear rather than, tell them they're screwing up. And then I think it's important to go through periods. Say we're talking about the post-diet area again. I think it's really important to go through periods where you take your foot off the gas in terms of making the physique the focus. And I start focusing on performance for a little while. So if somebody's been doing a diet for a long time, of course, they're checking their body weight, they're taking their measurements, they're looking in the mirror. It's hard for them to get out of that cycle when it's time to start putting on some muscle tissue or build their calories back up. So what I'll try and do is sit down with them and work out what their weaker body parts are. And then I'll set them performance targets. So say it's a girl that needs to bring up her glutes and hamstrings. I might set her some RDL or sumo deadlift targets for the off season. If it's a guy and he's got a lagging chest, story of my life, I might set them like an incline dumbbell press or an incline barbell press target. So I'll start trying to make that switch where we come away from the physique metrics and start focusing on the performance aspects that will benefit their physique in the long run, but helps that whole relationship with food and body image.
It takes their mind off a little bit, just staring.
It's exactly that.
It gives another route progression. That's why, like, one of my first questions for people is always like, what's your training been like in the gym? What's your training performance? In particular with like clients when they come into you, I don't get the same thing where people start like a weight loss diet with you straight away, but their weight's not dropping, but there's big body fat like adaptations happening. And then first thing I say to them is like, okay, so what's your strength thing? It's like, oh, it's as strong as I've ever been. So like, and then I'll say to them, what do you think's happening then? So, oh yeah, I'm adding muscle tissue. I was like, so why do you think the scales aren't moving? I was like, you've answered the question. Like, you leave the clients the answer for themselves and then they understand. Yeah,
it's hugely important that is like educating clients, doing what you've just done, where you lead them to their own answers. And then also just explaining the process and the reasoning behind certain things. And then it really empowers them. So for example, I set one of my clients a step goal a few weeks back. And he comes back to me and he says, Adam, I'm an office worker. It's quite hard for me to get these steps in. So I came back and explained to him, this sounds counterintuitive, but that's why I've given you them. It's because you're an office worker and you're sedentary. Yeah. And I said to him, like, this is the reason why, this is what the studies are showing in terms of, NEAT and so on. And if we can switch this up, you'll start losing body. And the point of it is rather than just give them a blanket prescription and then never teaching them the why, it's, educating them so that then they can make that conscious decision themselves. Do I do it and take myself a step closer to my goals? Or do I skip the steps despite what Adam's told me and then take myself a step further away from my goals? So I think empowering clients is huge. Same with overeating and stuff. I'll send them charts on, you've probably seen the chart doing its rounds on Instagram all the time. The like weekly average, your shit Monday to Friday, then you peak at the weekends. I send that to people so visually they can see it. And I say to them, like, there's nothing wrong. It doesn't make you a bad person if you overeat at the weekend. Just expect that week, your results probably going to be slower than usual. So I think that's really important, is doing what you've done, give leading questions that have clients come to the answer themselves. And then also, when you're asking them to do X, Y, and Z, sometimes just giving them the rationale behind it, so that they get that aha moment and they're like, okay, cool. So this is why I'm doing it, right? Should I, and then they can make that choice. Are my steps worth it today or not?
On a slightly different tangent, like I do the same thing with a lot of a few business mentoring clients I work with one-to-one, probably not on the scale you do. I find it works very well in the same field. So from a business aspect, you can lead people to their own answer. People always know what the answer is, but they just don't execute it out of their own brain, I find.
Yeah, yep. More often than not, it's the same thing. I found a real strong correlation with the guys and girls that go through my mentorships for the business coaching fall into the same patterns as their own clients. They moan to me saying, oh, my client's adherence isn't great. They haven't hit their steps, or they've cheated on their diet. And I'll go through their social media, for example, and I'm like, okay, so you haven't posted in 10 days. What's that about? That's the equivalent of you not hitting the steps. It's the same thing. You're telling me you're not getting enough leads, but you're not putting in X, Y, and Z to get there. Your client says to you, I haven't lost 2 pounds of fat this week. Well, they didn't follow the diet. They didn't hit their steps. So yeah, I think it's the same carries over in business. Absolutely. And again, we've all had it, where you get those clients that come to you and it's like they think that you've got a secret, magic supplement. They don't realize that they've actually got to put the work in.
We'd both be billionaires if we had the magic supplement.
Oh, dude, yeah. If only, yeah. And again, it's the same with the business thing. Is I'll get a percentage of people that will start it, and then they'll never finish their one. Just jump from coach to coach. Let me know if the sound's gone funny. I've just got this.
No, right now.
They'll just jump from coach to coach, hoping for that magic bullet, when it's like, no, it's to build a business or to look better. It's consistency, which is that boring word, but it's so true.
I think interesting you're saying about like the coach hopping from the business and a personal, a fitness aspect. I think people often they'll go blaming the coach, but then if it's you jumping ship all the time, the common denominator is yourself. So you sometimes have to take a hard look in the mirror and think, the reason I'm not getting where I want to be isn't the fact that all these other people who are so-called professionals and experts can't help me or know what they're doing. Perhaps I'm just not applying the knowledge they're trying to give me. You can't take a horse to water if you can't make it drink. What I'm saying is, like,
yeah, it's exactly that. Is they sign up to your program and expect for you to have, in the business case, some magic funnel, and in the physique case, a magic pill. And then when they realize that you don't have that, and you've worked hard to get to where you are, and you've been consistent to get to where you are in both business and physique, suddenly that's not so appealing. When you've got to say to somebody, right, you need to hit X amount of steps, you need to meal prep your food or have it delivered or whatever. But ultimately you need to eat in a caloric deficit. You need to train and put yourself through a little bit of discomfort in the gym a few times a week. And then you need to do that again and again and again and again. And then in business, you need to block out time to sit and write content. You need to get clear on who you're writing content for. You need to follow up with those leads. You need to deliver a great service if you want people coming back. Again, not so appealing. Especially when they've been on Instagram, they see the whole laptop lifestyle, right?
Yeah, sitting by the beach.
Yeah, they think they're just going to chill with their feet up at the pool, and it's like, yeah, if only.
Yes, not quite that straightforward. In terms of from a physique aspect, then what areas do you think a lot of coaches and clients perhaps overlook in terms of areas where they can improve where they necessarily aren't looking? Like for me, I think a few like just general topics maybe to discuss would be like sleep and digestion are probably two of the big ones, which I think are very valuable. They're often thrown aside.
Yeah, so sleep is a big one for most of the reasons that the majority of your listeners will know about. But the main one is that it's been shown in those that sleep 5 hours or less, that they produce less leptin, which is a hormone that tells you you're full after a meal. And they produce more ghrelin, which is a hormone that's secreted in between meals and ramps up hunger. So quite a big drop is seen in these, or an increase in ghrelin's case, at 5 hours, even worse at 4. And then with those that sleep less than 4 hours per night, I think the average BMI which I know for the most part for people that train is irrelevant, but for the average person that has no muscle tissue, the BMI is actually, for the gen pop, is quite relevant. Is I think it's like 3.6 points higher. So there's a strong correlation. Those that don't sleep well usually will subconsciously overeat. And this is why I explain to my clients that work night shifts and stuff like that is you're probably going to be hungrier coming off the back of it. It's up to you whether you override it. This is the reason why these are the two hormones that are at play. You can either give into it, or you can try and fight it a little bit and understand that it's, you know, you're hungry because of the lack of sleep. In terms of digestion, I'm going to come at this one with a muscle growth point of view. So, you know, digestion, as we know, it's important across the board. But again, I don't want to bore your listeners with things they've already heard before. So for me, I think the biggest limiting factor with people that have poor digestion is when they're going through phases of muscle growth, because it just crushes your appetite. Yeah. And this is what I've suffered with myself, is my digestive system is not great. And in the off seasons when I'm having to, you know, put large amounts of calories away, I'm just crippled. I'm not digesting it properly. You know, I'm really gassy after meals. I just don't want to eat again. And that's just not conducive to turning over muscle tissue. And funnily enough, one of the biggest things that helped me with that, and I'm going to sound like such a hippie here, is diaphragmatic breathing, right? So I understand diaphragmatic breathing. So I understand all the benefits of yoga, meditation, all this stuff. I just never do it. And I remember being on a mastermind in LA. And one of the days, the guy running it said, right, you're going to do a 2-hour breathing workshop with this, I can't remember what the lady's name was. And I remember rolling my eyes and thinking, is there any way I can, like, you know, there's 12 of us on this course. Can I just sneak out and go for food or something? You know, I didn't want to do a breathing workshop. But it's one of the best things I've ever done. So straight away, she was really enthusiastic, which helped. And then she assessed everybody's breathing, and you got graded from A to F in terms of your, you know, chest breather. Do your shoulders rise, or does your stomach go out? How much? Does all these ratios and measurements. And I scored an F. I was the worst in the whole group. Straight away, she looked at me and she went, "How's your digestion?" And I said, "Oh, it's pretty crap." I said, "You know, I get full real quickly. I can barely finish meals at the moment." And she said, "Yeah, your diaphragm's probably locked up. So your digestive tract won't be moving properly." So, you know, when you hear this and you're just like, "All right, yeah, sure." It's like a chiropractor, you know, that tells you you're out of alignment and all this crap. But throughout this breathing workshop, towards the end of it, I'm laying there doing these exercises, and I could feel my, like, it sounds disgusting, but like my stomach juices and stuff, like I could hear it gurgling away. Suddenly my appetite was ramped up. I had a bit of gas, which, you know, without sounding whatever. But anyway, my appetite afterwards for the next 2-3 days was amazing. So now I just kind of, this is just handy for those listening to this. If you're going through periods of muscle growth, and if you know that your digestion isn't great, have a look at your breathing. Just Google it. If you're a chest breather, like most people, you're probably not going to be secreting like stomach acids properly, digestive enzymes. When you start learning to breathe through your diaphragm, it like massages almost like the intestines and helps kick peristalsis and everything. So bit of a tangent there, but basically from a digestive point of view, especially for those wanting to add muscle, you know, they've done your fat loss phase, you've primed yourself, you're ready to grow. If you start getting the carbs towards 350 grams a day, and you start feeling you just can't face the next meal and stuff, that's going to be a limiting factor long term. Have a look at digestion, and breathing is just, for me, game changer.
I agree. I think it's that's some awesome information there, to be fair.
It surprised me. As I said, when I got told I was going to be doing a breathing workshop, I was really trying to like get an Uber somewhere else and just skip it and meet everybody else out in the evening. So glad I went on it. It was so, yeah, if anyone's suffering from digestive issues, bloating, feeling full during meals. I mean, mine was to the point, one of my exes was out eating me. You know, we'd go for a meal out. I couldn't finish my meal. And she weighed like 53 kilos or something. It was that bad. So yeah, now I just rein it in every so often, just question my breathing, and it's got so much better.
Obviously, like you, on that, you obviously spend a lot of money investing in yourself in terms of workshops, mentoring, and trying to like educate yourself to be the best version of yourself that you can be, which is something that I'm a big advocate of. And I think a lot of people are too afraid sometimes to invest in themselves, which I think, like, if you want to succeed in anything, that you have to invest in yourself and back yourself to go and achieve whatever you want to achieve. Like so you've learned that skill there of breathing. Now that's a gift and a skill you have for life. Like, I think, would you agree that too many people are too afraid to go and try something and invest and try to learn something new?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. In most areas, I mean, even, you know, my dad, for example, you know, he's had certain small medical issues and he goes to GP, goes around in circles. And I'm like, Dad, just go do it privately. No, I'm not bloody paying for it. I'm like, Dad, I'll just fucking do it. Like, let me book it for you. Trust me, you're going to get it seen straight away. It's going to be something that gives more of a shit. So there's one example. And then the other is, of course, in business. The natural reaction for most people when things are tight and money is not where they want it to be is to hunker down, right? It's like save, save, save. And that's what the generations before us did and the generations before that. And that's why most people live a very average lifestyle. For me, if you've been in a cycle for a period of time where financially things aren't great, you need to do something to break that cycle. Just constantly saving and scrimping is not going to change that. A great example is, and I've got a screenshot of it, is one of the guys that went through my mentorship. His name's Steve. When he signed up to it, he gave me the whole talk of, you know, this needs to work for me. Like, you know, I'm down at my last bit of money and so on. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard that before. So he sent me a screenshot afterwards. He was overdrawn by like 1,800 and something pounds. So it was literally like, you know, negative.
Yeah.
5 weeks in. And I just wanted to, this isn't a typical result. He is an anomaly. 5 weeks in, he turned over 15 grand online. Literally, like, he was in debt in his overdraft by almost 2,000 pounds. The average person would look at that and just save, and they're going to be stuck in that overdraft for the next 10, 15 years, unless they win the lottery or something. But he took that proactive approach of, okay, you know what, like, I've done my homework. I think this could work. It's a bit of a risk. And it always is. You would have done it, you know, when you've invested in your business coaches, it's a calculated risk that it's, okay, shit, you know, this is a decent chunk of money. So I'm not saying ever like be reckless with it and go to the first six-figure guru that you see online and give them all your money. You need to do your research and see what sort of results this person's had. But I think the common thing is always thinking it won't happen for me. You know, they might follow somebody for a while.
Like, if someone else has done it, why can't you do it? Like, realistically.
So yeah, that exact thing is, I put this story on Instagram last year, that basically exact phrase. So I remember with an ex of mine, I was 19, working in the local gym, K2 in Crawley. And we got talking one day and an Aston Martin went past. And I remember, and I said to her, you know, one day that's going to be my goal. Like, I want an Aston Martin. That's my dream car. Like, I like, you know, McLarens, Ferraris, but Aston Martins, English, handmade. And she just laughed and she's like, and she sounds like a bitch when I say it, but she didn't mean like that. But she goes like, come on, like, you know, you clean treadmills, you know, you're on 15 grand a year, you clean treadmills. And I literally said to her, well, somebody has to drive it. Like, that dude's driving it. Like, why can't I? If I work hard, why can't I do it? Why can't it happen for me if I get my head down? And that's what I did. And then last September, was literally sat in an Aston Martin dealership, like, specking everything. And I sent her a WhatsApp and went, guess where I am? It was like, you know, like 7-8 years later or something like that. So yeah, it just comes down to that. Yeah. Why can't it happen to you? And it's the same with the business coaching, is somebody will follow somebody like yourself, myself, Mark Coles, Phil Graham, Phil Lerney. They'll see results that their students get. And they'll come so close to like taking that plunge, and then they'll just get that last minute doubt of, oh, it's fake. or it won't happen for me, or this person's got a bigger following, or that person's, you know, better looking, or whatever it may be, they're more marketable. It's just self-crippling.
I think it's one of those things, like, if you don't believe in yourself, then why should anyone else?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You've just got to just,
like,
my whole thing is, I always say this, you know, on my mentorship on the psychology webinars, that like, my biggest fear is hitting like 50, 60 years old and thinking, what the fuck have I done with my life?
you didn't go for it.
Yeah. And when you think about it, the first 20 years of your life are school, education, screwing around. And then let's say from 70, 80, that's when, you know, people start wiping your ass for you and all that sort of stuff. So you've really got like a 50-year window to put the work in and start living life on your terms. Like, it's really not that long, you know. It's 20 years is gone already. And then you don't want to leave it to the last minute in which you start, you know, just that gradual decline of aging and so on. You can't walk properly. And so for me, you've got like a 40, 50-year window to maximize it. So just bet on yourself and fucking go for it. And what's the worst that can happen?
You go back to
yeah, you just go, yeah, exactly. It's like, so the worst that happens is you invest a bit of money, maybe it didn't work out. 9 times out of 10 it will, if you put the work in. And 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, you can live, you know, a considerably better life. And that's not to say you're going to have that 1% lifestyle, you're not going to have a fucking private jet and all that, but to be able to just...
In reality, is that happiness? Like,
well, no, that's true. Yeah, for me...
What is it that actually, like, this sounds very sad, but for me, what I want to do is work out, travel a bit, eat nice food, spend some time with my wife, and that's about it, really. I don't really care about doing, like, flash stuff too much.
Yeah, so it's taken me a while to realize that. So I remember on that LA mastermind, that there was this guy that kept talking. And whenever he would talk on it, he was saying some like the odd one-liner that was like, oh shit, this dude's, you know, he switched on. And we went for food in the evening and I was sat next to him. And I turned to him and I said, you're a deep guy. Like, you know, where'd these come from? And he says, oh, I'm a life coach over in Miami. You know, I work with a lot of people and this, that, the other. And I said, oh, interesting. I said, can I quickly pick your brains? And he's like, yeah. And I said, look, do not take this the wrong way. I'm not depressed by any means. But if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be earning, you know, the money that I earn, which is reasonable and just nothing that I would have expected when I was that 19-year-old cleaning treadmills, that I would drive this car or wear this watch or whatever, I would have thought I'd be happy as a pig in shit. But I'm not. And I said, that's not me saying I'm depressed, but you just assume, don't you, that, right, earn this money, buy this shit, you're going to be super happy. And he just looked at me and he was like, oh, you fall into the classic trap of thinking that success equals fulfillment. It's like, that's one part of the spoke, you know, of like a bike tire. It's like, you know, financial success can reduce stress and so on. But there's so much more to it. Family, travel, experiences, food, all the stuff that you've just named. So that's my big focus now, is just trying to spend, you know, quality time with people that I would like to spend it with, rather than chasing materialistic things. Don't get me wrong. I still like materialistic things as well. Like, I've always been a bit like that, but for me, it's more the memories and stuff now, and the travel, which is why, as I said, Dubai this Saturday, I come back for 2 days and I go to Iceland for 3 nights, and I come back for 4 weeks and I go to New York for a few nights. It's just that whole, as I said, that 50-year.
Yeah, we basically do the mirror image of me. I go to Dubai in December, New York in January, Thailand in February.
Oh shit! There you go. Right? It's yeah, it's perfect. It's just seeing the world and experiencing different things, and just, yeah, getting out. For those listening to this, and this is no judgment, but for me, just that whole, you know, like 9 to 5 type thing, you know, got to clock in, got to clock out, you know, check with your boss if you can get annual leave signed off. Like, they're just no way. No. So yeah, for anyone listening to this, maybe use this as the kick up the arse to start looking into doing something about it, rather than just coasting along thinking that things will get better, because they won't. Things don't just typically fall into place. You know, nobody got lean overnight, and nobody makes loads of money overnight. It's, you want to get lean, you typically would hire somebody that's been there before you. You can Google it and you can probably find most of the information online, but it's going to be a faster ticket if you can hire somebody that's walked the walk already. Exactly. They're just going to stop you from making the mistakes. And the same with making money. There's loads of websites, loads of resources you could probably use. But again, my advice, just put some money into it, have somebody fast track you from A to B. And you'll be surprised, how quickly it can all just fall into place naturally.
No, 100%. I think that's one thing I think people need to look for. There's always like a trigger point in life where people are almost like enough is enough. So it's either the way you look or the way you live your life in terms of you're going to start your own business, where that flip will, the switch will flip, and then you make a decision to take action to hire someone to help you, and it will help you level up. And I think almost exposing yourself and asking for help is the first step to actually achieving whatever your goal or dream is.
Yeah, there's almost always a trigger behind it. And then it's just whether you're that person that will realize what that trigger is and then actually do something about it. Is that trigger strong enough to make you think, okay, right, now's the time to put in the graft. Now's the time to, this last few £1,000s in my bank, I can either let it sit there and have it as a safety blanket that I do nothing with, or I can put it towards something and turn that 2-3 grand into 6 grand, into 12, into 24. Not quite as easy as that, but theoretically.
No, 100%. I think we'll wrap up there because I think it's quite a good point to finish on, Adam. So if you want to find out a bit more about you, to get in touch about what you do from a training side of things, business side of things, how's best to get in touch with you? Good
old Instagram, which is probably how they found this podcast, I'd imagine. Yeah, exactly. Good old Instagram. So just at Adam Hayley 1. So it's Adam and then Hayley, and then the number 1. And what I would say is for your listeners, so I've got on my Instagram profile, there's like a sales script thing they can download if that helps them. But what I'm in the middle of putting together is like a content matrix just to help people come up with content a little bit easier. So should have it finished in the next day or so. So for anyone listening to this, as a thank you, if you've made it this far for listening to me waffle, if you do give me a follow, just drop me a quick DM and just say you've listened to Charlie's podcast. And I'll send these extra bits out as a bit of a thank you before anyone else has got them.
No, that's appreciated. Yeah. So make sure everyone you drop Adam a DM with the details for that. And also, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please like and share it onto your stories. We really appreciate the feedback. As always, I'm going to be giving away one free custom diet program for anyone who leaves a review on iTunes. So again, if you can leave a review on iTunes this week, the winner will be announced at the end of the week. And thank you very much, Adam, and we will wrap that up there.
No worries, dude. Thank you.
Thank you.